Do you blame yourself for stress eating sometimes? Hi, I'm Dr. Allie, an obesity medicine physician, and I want to talk a little bit about how stress eating can actually be influenced by your genetics. Okay, so just stick with me here and I'm going to explain it. So the idea that we react to a situation that maybe causes stress. So if you have a variant in your cortisol receptor gene, then potentially what happens is when you're stressed, you produce more cortisol. Okay, so cortisol does a bunch of different things. One of the things that it does do is it increases our blood sugar. The other thing that it does is that it's going to kind of perpetuate more stress. And when we're stressed, what do we want to have happen? We want to feel better. So, dopamine. Did you know that how we utilize dopamine is also genetically determined? If we have a variant in our gene that essentially either causes situations where we might not produce enough dopamine, or we overconsume, we break down too fast the dopamine, then potentially we have the stress response and it's really hard to have enough dopamine to really deal with the stress response. So what do? Well, if you have a variant in your ANKK1 gene, you're going to be more likely to be an emotional eater. Why? Because there's going to be a stronger dopamine reward pathway as it relates to food. Okay, so we got the stress. We need dopamine to feel better. There's no dopamine. How are we going to get it? Let's go ahead and let's eat some food. Now, there's also a variant that some people have where they are more predisposed to have a sweet tooth. This is the FTO gene. Okay, so if you're more predisposed to have a sweet tooth, all right, and you're really already trying to create more dopamine, you're not only going to want to eat food, but you're going to want to eat sweet food with added sugar. Okay, then there's a satiety gene. It's called MC4R. If there's a variant in your MC4R gene, then what can happen is you actually don't have normal satiety, so you don't feel full normally. Okay, that's a huge problem for about 30% of us, in fact. Okay, so then what happens? Well, we're now eating food to try to feel better. However, we have no stopping point. So we only have the stopping point when we've generated enough dopamine in our brain to feel good enough. But it's not going to be satiety that stops that. So then what happens? So now you review the whole cycle of what just happened. You got stressed, you needed to feel better, you ate some food, you ate some sweet food or whatever kind of food you ate, and then you weren't able to get satisfied out of feeling satiety until you finally got enough dopamine to feel better, and then you stopped eating, and then you beat yourself up for doing what you just did, which creates more stress, and then it starts the whole cycle again. Now, I'm not saying that every single person has a variant in all these different genes. In general, though, if you were to have a variant in all these genes as they relate to stress, as they relate to emotional eating, overeating, okay, then that stress response pathway for eating is going to be heightened, okay? So just so you know, if you are sitting there beating yourself up because of stress eating, be kind, be compassionate, be gentle with yourself. It's not your problem, okay? A lot of times it lies in our genes. So being aware and recognizing and giving ourselves the most compassion that we possibly can so that we can just make the next best decision is going to be how we end the stress response. Okay, hope this was helpful, and let me know if you resonate with any one of those genes mentioned. Okay, we'll talk soon.